You don't procrastinate because you're lazy. You procrastinate because your brain is trying to protect you. That might sound strange. After all, procrastination makes life harder. Deadlines get closer, stress builds, opportunities disappear. So why would your brain choose something that creates more problems? Because your brain isn't designed to build your dream life. It's designed to keep you comfortable. And those are two very different goals. The uncomfortable truth is that your brain would rather you stay safe than become successful. It would rather avoid pain than pursue growth. That's why procrastination isn't really about poor time management. It's emotional self-protection. The moment you understand that, you stop asking, why am I so lazy? And you start asking a much better question. What is my brain trying to protect me from? Imagine you're sitting at your desk. There's one task you've been avoiding for days. Maybe it's studying for an exam, writing an important email, starting a business, recording your first YouTube video. You know exactly what you need to do. You even want the result. But instead of starting, you suddenly remember the dishes. Your room could use a quick clean. Maybe you should make coffee first. Then you check your phone. 5 minutes becomes 20. 20 becomes an hour. Before you know it, the day is over. Now you feel guilty. Tomorrow you promise yourself will be different. But tomorrow turns into next week. And next week becomes next month. If this feels familiar, you're not alone. Millions of people repeat this cycle every single day, not because they're lazy, because their brains are doing exactly what they've been programmed to do. Every difficult task creates emotional friction. You don't just feel the weight of the work. You feel uncertainty, self-doubt, fear of failure, sometimes even fear of success, because success brings responsibility. Your brain notices those emotions long before it notices the benefits of finishing the task. To your nervous system, discomfort is a warning signal. And the fastest way to remove that discomfort is distraction. One scroll through social media, one quick YouTube video, one episode on Netflix. Just 5 more minutes. The relief feels immediate. The anxiety disappears. Your brain remembers that. It quietly learns a new pattern. When work feels uncomfortable, avoid it. Every time you repeat that pattern, the habit grows stronger. Eventually, procrastination stops being a decision. It becomes your default response. Here's what's fascinating. Your brain isn't trying to ruin your future. It's trying to improve your present. It chooses immediate relief over long-term reward because that's how human beings evolved. Thousands of years ago, survival depended on solving today's problems, not next year's. Your brain still carries that ancient programming, which means it naturally values immediate rewards far more than distant ones. This is called present bias. The reward for scrolling your phone happens now. The reward for exercising might take months. The reward for building a business could take years. Your brain sees one reward as certain, the other as distant and uncertain. So unless you consciously interrupt that pattern, procrastination wins by default. But there's another reason we avoid important work, and it's far more personal: fear. Not fear of the task itself, fear of what completing the task might reveal. What if I fail? What if I'm not talented enough? What if people judge me? What if I give everything I have and it still isn't enough? Those questions create emotional pain before you've even begun. So your brain offers an escape. We'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow feels safe because it doesn't require action today. The problem is, tomorrow never arrives. Every morning simply becomes another version of today. One of the biggest myths about productivity is that motivation comes first. We've all believed it. I'll start when I feel motivated. But motivation is unreliable. Some days it's there. Most days it isn't. If you only act when motivation appears, you'll spend much of your life waiting. Successful people aren't constantly motivated. They've simply learned something most people never do. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Think about pushing a stalled car. The hardest part isn't keeping it moving, it's creating that first inch of movement. Once the wheels begin turning, every push becomes easier. Your mind works exactly the same way. Starting feels heavy, continuing feels surprisingly natural. The obstacle isn't the work, the obstacle is beginning. That's why one of the most powerful productivity strategies sounds almost too simple. Lower the barrier to starting. Don't tell yourself you'll study for 4 hours. Tell yourself you'll study for 2 minutes. Open the notebook, read one page, write one sentence. That's all. Your only goal is to begin, because something remarkable happens once you do. The resistance starts to disappear. Your brain realizes the task wasn't as threatening as it imagined. Momentum quietly takes over. Most people never struggle with working. They struggle with starting. And once they start, they rarely want to stop. So now think about your environment. Look around the room you're sitting in. Every object is influencing your behavior. If your phone is lying beside you, it silently asks for your attention. If notifications keep appearing, your focus never has the chance to deepen. If your workspace is cluttered, your thoughts often become cluttered too. We like to believe our decisions come from discipline. In reality, they often come from design. The easier a distraction is to access, the more likely you are to choose it. So make the right choice, the easiest choice. Leave your phone in another room. Close unnecessary tabs. Prepare your workspace before you begin. Lay out tomorrow's gym clothes tonight. Remove the friction from good habits. Add friction to bad ones. Small environmental changes often achieve what willpower never could. But perhaps the biggest hidden cause of procrastination is perfectionism. It disguises itself as preparation. You tell yourself you need a better plan, more research, and a little more time, the perfect moment. But underneath those excuses is a simple fear. If I don't start, I can't fail. Perfectionism promises safety, but it quietly steals progress. Every expert you admire once produced terrible work. Every author wrote a messy first draft. Every entrepreneur launched an imperfect product. Every athlete had awkward first performances. Improvement never comes before action. It only comes because of it. Waiting for perfect conditions is simply another form of procrastination, and perfection has delayed more dreams than failure ever has. The most powerful shift you can make has nothing to do with productivity. It has everything to do with identity. Most people focus on what they want to achieve. I want to write a book. I want to get in shape. I want to build a business. Those are good goals, but goals only tell you where you want to go. Identity determines whether you'll actually get there. Instead of asking, what do I want to accomplish? Ask yourself, who do I want to become? Because every action you take is a vote for the person you're becoming. When you read a few pages, you're casting a vote for becoming a reader. When you exercise, you're casting a vote for becoming someone who values their health. When you sit down and work, even for just 10 minutes, you're casting a vote for becoming someone who keeps promises to themselves. No single action changes your life overnight, but thousands of small actions shape your identity. And once your identity changes, your behavior begins to follow naturally. There's another psychological principle that's easy to overlook. Your brain hates unfinished tasks. Have you ever noticed how a song gets stuck in your head? Or why cliffhangers make you want to watch just one more episode? Your mind craves closure. The same thing happens with work. Once you've genuinely started a task, your brain wants to finish it. That's why opening the document is often harder than writing the second page. Starting creates an open loop, and your brain naturally wants to close it. Use that to your advantage. If you're struggling to begin, don't aim to finish. Just create the open loop. Write the first sentence. Solve the first question. Edit the first paragraph. Tomorrow will feel easier because your mind already wants to continue. Another reason people procrastinate is decision fatigue. Every decision costs mental energy. What should I work on first? How long should I study? Should I answer emails first? Maybe I should organize my desk before I begin. By the time you've made 10 small decisions, you're mentally exhausted. The solution isn't more motivation. It's fewer decisions. Create routines. Work at the same time every day. Know exactly what your first task will be before you sit down. Successful people don't rely on making the perfect decision every morning. They build systems that remove the need to decide at all. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't negotiate with yourself. You don't wait until you feel inspired. You simply do it. Not because you're exceptionally disciplined, because it's become automatic. That's what habits are. Decisions you no longer have to make. Imagine if starting your work became just as automatic. No internal debate, no waiting for motivation, no bargaining with yourself, just action. That isn't impossible. It's exactly how every strong habit is formed, one repetition at a time. Here's something most people never realize. Every time you procrastinate, you're teaching your brain a lesson. You're saying, when things become uncomfortable, we run away. But every time you start despite the discomfort, you're teaching your brain something entirely different. We can handle difficult things. That lesson changes everything. Because confidence doesn't come from thinking differently. It comes from repeatedly proving something to yourself. Each small victory becomes evidence. Evidence that you're capable. Evidence that you're consistent. Evidence that you can trust yourself. And self-trust is far more valuable than motivation. The people you admire aren't fearless. They still feel doubt. They still feel resistance. They still have days when they don't want to work. The difference is that they stop treating discomfort as a stop sign. Instead, they see it as a signal, a sign that they're doing something meaningful. Because growth almost always feels uncomfortable. Learning a new skill feels uncomfortable. Building a business feels uncomfortable. Having difficult conversations feels uncomfortable. Changing your life feels uncomfortable. Discomfort isn't proof that you're on the wrong path. Very often, it's proof that you're finally moving. Now imagine two versions of yourself. The first version keeps waiting. Waiting for confidence, waiting for motivation, waiting for the perfect opportunity. A year passes, nothing changes. The second version doesn't feel any more motivated. They simply decide to start before they feel ready. They take one small step every day. Some days are productive, some aren't, but they keep showing up. A year later, the difference between those two lives is almost impossible to ignore. Not because one person was smarter, or more talented, or luckier, because one person understood that consistency beats intensity every single time. Here's something worth remembering. You almost never regret beginning. You regret postponing. You regret the opportunities you never took, the conversations you never had, the projects you never started, the ideas that stayed trapped inside your head. The pain of action is temporary. The pain of regret can last for years. So the next time you catch yourself reaching for your phone or saying you'll start tomorrow, pause, take one slow breath, then ask yourself one question. What is the smallest action I can take right now? Not this afternoon, not after one more video, not tomorrow morning, right now. Open the file, write one sentence, read one page, take one step, then another. Because your future will never be built by one extraordinary moment of motivation. It will be built by hundreds of ordinary moments where you chose action over avoidance. Small choices, repeated consistently, day after day, until the person you once hoped to become is simply who you are. And one day you'll look back and realize something surprising. The hardest part was never the work. It was convincing yourself to begin. Once you did, everything else became possible.